Michael Andretti and Andretti Autosport want to enter Formula One. There's just one problem. Formula One may not want Andretti Autosport. Liberty Media and the FIA aren't actively looking for new teams to enter Formula One, and Andretti submitted its proposal all on their own. Formula One CEO Stefano Domenicali said, quote, "Personally, I do not believe that the number of teams in Formula One is a limiting factor from the point of view of entertainment. I believe it is a priority to work to increase the competitiveness of some teams that are already present. I do not believe that increasing the number of entries brings added value unless they are teams of the highest quality." The last time a new team was added to F1 was in 2016 with Haas F1. The difference that time was the FIA held a formal application process. Current regulations allow for 13 teams, and Andretti would only be the 11th. Andretti had previously been in talks to buy Alfa Romeo, but those talks fell through, with Michael Andretti saying, quote, "It became a deal we had to step away from. In the end, it wasn't right for us," end quote. And then also, quote, "I'd like to put an end to some of these rumors that the deal fell through because of financial reasons. That couldn't be further from the truth. It had nothing to do with that. I've always said that. If the deal's not right, we're not going to do it. And the deal wasn't right, so we'll continue to look for other opportunities," end quote. The deal apparently fell through because the current owners of the team wanted to maintain a controlling interest in the team. Alfa Romeo is not the only F1 team, though, that Andretti has tried to buy. It has also come to light that Andretti has tried multiple times over the past 2 years to buy Haas F1, but Gene Haas has not shown any interest in selling the team. The Andretti team would be called Andretti Global and would be headquartered in the UK while working with other Andretti shops in the US. The plan would be to join in 2024. Andretti already has an engine deal lined up with Renault, and Renault would make the most sense as they currently no longer have any customer teams after McLaren switched back to Mercedes. It may seem like more teams may be good for F1, but that may not be the case. And one reason why F1 may not want to have any new teams is that they've kind of settled into a state of stability recently, and may be afraid of returning to the early 2010s in that instability of poorly funded teams, and where all the new teams that entered the sport were quickly gone within the next couple of seasons. And while I can understand this, I counter that Andretti is in a very much different position than those teams. The teams, though, however, aren't going to jump at the idea of adding a new team, because that means less money for everyone, as prize money would then have to be split between an additional team. But I counter both of those issues with the new $200 million entry fee imposed by Liberty Media. Now, I'm not sure how much liquid assets Andretti has, but I would assume, since they seem very serious about this, that they've already considered this, and they are an organization with the potential to pay this. Andretti recently formed Andretti Acquisitions, which has been reported to have raised $200 million. The $200 million entry fee serves two purposes. One, to ensure teams have the capital necessary to field an F1 team. And two, the $200 million would be spread evenly amongst the current teams as compensation for having to share earnings amongst a new team. Andretti Autosport has teams in IndyCar, Indy Lights, Indy Pro 2000, and Formula E. They also have minority investments in teams in the Australian Supercar Championship and Extreme E. This is an organization with not just the financial capacity to support an F1 team, but also the manufacturing and technical capacity. It's been reported that they would be building the chassis completely in-house, as opposed to Haas, who outsourced design and construction to Dallara. Andretti has well-established relationships with several large brands, including a long-time partnership with an official F1 partner in DHL. DHL currently sponsors former F1 driver Roman Grosjean and Andretti's IndyCar program. Plus, there's the marketing value of the Andretti name. They can leverage the value of the Andretti name to sponsors, increasing the value of sponsors with that of the Andretti brand. My point is, Andretti has partnerships that may be interested in their F1 effort. And if they're not, I don't think they'd have problems attracting quality brands. Unlike, say, Haas with Rich Energy. Andretti would also have the highest chance of any of the teams at getting an American driver into F1. Most people think that could be Colton Herta. Herta currently has 32 of the required 40 points for a super license. 4 of those points expire at the end of 2022. But with a top 3 in the IndyCar Championship this season, that would make him eligible for a super license. However, Herta is actually already eligible for a free practice only super license right now. This would allow him to take part in only free practice sessions for a team. But with no team, it doesn't really matter. Although he could get 1 additional point for every practice session he participates in. Michael Andretti had this to say in reference to Herta racing in F1. Quote, "He'd be the perfect guy to do it. We definitely were going to try and get him in that Alfa Romeo seat that went to Guan Yu Zhou. I believe he could be a competitive driver in Europe." End quote. Mario Andretti also commented on Herta in F1 saying, quote, "100%. I want Colton Herta there in F1 so badly. He deserves to be there. To me, he's such an exceptional talent, and he needs to be able to show that in F1. And not only do I think he's really talented, but he really wants it himself. And to be assured he's treated fairly, and he would get that with this team. And maybe if he doesn't get the results he's looking for, maybe he can get an offer somewhere else, but at least he would get a fair shake with Michael. You've got 2 races and potentially 3 in the US, and I don't think it would hurt F1 to have another American team alongside Haas. And it would definitely have at least 1 American driver that you can count on. If not, I'll cut Michael's allowance off." End quote. The last American F1 driver was Alexander Rossi, who raced 5 races with Manor in 2015. The last American to run a full season was Scott Speed with Toro Rosso in 2006, scoring 0 points and finishing 20th. Speed also ran a partial 2007 before being replaced with Sebastian Vettel. I think it would be a huge mistake to not allow Andretti into F1. Liberty Media has made making F1 in America a priority, and with talks of a 3rd Grand Prix in Las Vegas, this proves their commitment to F1 in America. With Liberty Media and the FIA's push to be bigger in America, this presents a perfect opportunity to grow and attract new fans. Before anyone says that F1 already has an American team and doesn't need another, that's true, but Haas had been recently running a Russian flag on their car, and now that's not very American if you ask me. Also, given Haas's relationship with Ferrari, this very limits how good Haas can be. Haas isn't trying to win races. Andretti wants to be in F1 and wants to be successful at it, and they seem to have the resources to pull it off. I think Andretti would be trying to win races. Michael Andretti is the last American to stand on an F1 podium, having scored a 3rd at Monza with McLaren in 1993. Andretti could come into F1 as a true American team and possibly an American driver with a goal of winning races and boosting F1 viewership in the US and attract new fans. It could also help turn current casual American fans into more hardcore dedicated fans. I think that Andretti has the necessary tools to be successful in F1, and not allowing that to go through would be a huge blow to F1 in America and a huge mistake by the FIA and Liberty Media. So now, as for Domenicali's comments I mentioned earlier, After Bahrain, Haas and Alfa Romeo have proved that they are better, scoring 5th and 6th with Magnussen and Bottas. These two teams finished 9th and 10th in the constructor standings last season. So they've already proven that they are better. He said he doesn't see added value in adding teams unless they are of the highest quality. As I already said, I think Andretti can be a very quality entry for F1, and thus, by Domenicali's own comments, can bring value to F1. But that's just how I see it. It just depends, I guess, on how the FIA and F1 view the Andretti proposal and the value that they can bring in to Formula One. So now, you've heard from me, and now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Andretti entering Formula One? Do you think the FIA will grant them an entry? Do you think they could be successful in F1? Who would you like to see drive for Andretti? Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, so long, everybody.